improvisational theatre, or theatre that was written out of improvisation.
Huh.
So
he was doing that.
He was doing that way back then. Yes, absolutely.
Have you done any work with him?
No, I've never worked with Mike. I know him because, being
that seems crazy to me.
Contemporaries, but I've never worked with him. No.
How are you at the improvising? Are you any good? Can you do it?
Sometimes I'm really good at it, and sometimes I'm unbelievably naff. You know what naff means?
I feel like because of how you used it, I know what it means.
Yeah, naff means naff.
Yeah,
but not very good.
So
maybe that's the nature of improvisation. But Americans are brilliant at improvisation.
Yeah, some of them.
Americans are much freer. I think the Brits are getting freer because I think they've learned from the Americans.
Oh, well,
and
finally.
I think finally, exactly. It took them a long time, but
you have addressed that. It's sort of interesting that I'm jumping around a bit, but that I rewatched The Queen as well, which you won the Academy Award for. I watched it the other night, and that's a really amazing performance on your part, but it's a great story, and it's a really great script to sort of figure out how to capture that woman as a human, and in what situations. It's just really kind of a brilliantly constructed movie.
Yes, Peter Morgan, a great writer. Really,
yeah, it was really something. But it sort of deals with that idea of how British people see themselves, and how they think they're supposed to behave traditionally or nationally.
Yes, absolutely. That's of a certain generation.
Yeah,
obviously,
right.
And I don't know how true that. I'm an Elizabethan in the sense that when I came into this world, Elizabeth was on the throne.
Mm-hmm.
No, she wasn't on the throne, but she was I think 6 or 7 when she was crowned.
Mm-hmm.
And she may well outlive me, I don't know, but she will have been the queen for the whole of my life.
Yeah.
She has been the monarch of Britain, and I think, that as we were talking earlier about my parents' generation, that generation of people, of which the Queen is very much a part of that generation.
Yeah.
It's amazing that she's still there. So we can see that generation still alive and still committed to their sense of values, and that, to be criticized sometimes, but also to be admired in many ways.
Yeah, there was some great stuff in that movie between you and what's his name, Michael, or who played Blair?
Michael Sheen. Michael Sheen, yes, fantastic.
Really something else, and it's fresh in my head. Obviously, I know you did it a long time ago.
Thank you for watching. That's very sweet of you. And doing your homework.
Well, it's like there's not. You have such. There's so much you've done. And there, and for some reason, I chose to watch a bit of Catherine. I chose to watch Long Good Friday, and I chose to watch The Queen. I don't know why I chose.
That's a good mix.
And then
that's a good mix.
And I watched a couple of clips from Hero Stratus.
That's unfair. That's unfair. I was at college when I did that. That was a student film that I stupidly signed up for when I was like 18 years old.
I didn't know what it was. I was trying to figure out just how.
It's amazing. It's still around. It's very alarming.
Well, I don't think you can't. They don't have the whole movie on YouTube, I don't think. And I think it's someone has reprinted it and made it available. I was just curious in terms of, in that time, in the late 60s, early 70s, when there was so much kind of creative and adventurous things going on, in theater and in film or whatever. I was more curious about, what you were involved in.
It was a period of the whole 60s thing was an incredible sort of explosion in so many ways, politically, artistically.
Yeah. So that's what I was looking at. I wasn't looking at it to make fun of you or anything. I was curious.
The embarrassment tapes.
No,
yes.
No. So before I forget, do you know, and I'm sure you've answered this question before because I'm sure you did press junkets and it was on every one of them. Do you know how the Queen, did she say anything about your performance?
No, she never directly said anything. She wouldn't. I did meet her afterwards.
You
She very
did?
kindly. Oh, I did. I had met her very briefly before,
Uh-huh.
um, but she very kindly, and this was basically a tick. Um, she invited me for tea, to
Wow.
have tea. No, not I was at Ascot. I had been asked to give a prize at Ascot. So I probably as a stand-in for the Queen, really. But she was there because she goes to Royal Ascot. And she asked me to go and have tea.
What is Ascot?
Ascot is a race thing,
Okay,
a
okay.
horse race
Okay,
thing.
all right.
Horse race meeting.
Got it, yeah.
It's the biggest, poshest horse race meeting in Britain. Royal Ascot, and the Queen goes because, as you know, she's a huge horse aficionado.
Right.
That's her passion. That's her drive, is horses. Not monarchy, actually, although she does it so well.
So she asked you for tea?
She asked me for tea,
Yeah.
and she introduced me to some sheikh that was there as well. As this is Dame Helen, because I was made a dame before I played the Queen, funnily enough, but this is Dame Helen. She played me, in the film. And the sheikh looked completely confused because he obviously hadn't seen or heard of the film. So,
but she watched it.
But she never said anything. And I never would have expected her to. Why should she? That's the great thing about that kind of monarchy, is that they just let us get on with it.
Uh-huh.
They get criticized, they get mocked,
right?
And they just say nothing.
Well, when you do that character, or and this is a question I wanted to go back and ask also about Shakespeare. I have to assume, even though you seem to want to approach acting, it's a craft, it's a skill, it's something you practice. But there are things revealed to you through the process. I mean, you must take something away from, figuring out how to play the Queen with a full sort of strata of human emotions. Doesn't it have an effect on your life?
Yeah, I mean, what we do as artists, in any of the arts, is that we are constantly re-examining what it is to be human, aren't we? I mean, just constantly. Musicians do that, painters do that, writers do that, and certainly actors do that. It's a constant re-examination of what it is to be human in all these different contexts. So, playing the Queen, it's very interesting because she lives in a bubble that none of us can comprehend.
Yeah.
Except for, I guess, some other monarchs somewhere else in some other country. But this, Jeff Bezos doesn't live in that kind of bubble.
Yeah, no.
It's a very specific, and the weight of history.
Right, because there's the
bubble,
the context of traditions that have to be. The
context of absolutely, and that you are one of a long, long line, and the formality, and all of the shit, and the spoiledness of it, and the fact that no one can you imagine this. No one has ever not laughed at one of your jokes, ever in your life since you were 15.
Right. If
you cracked anything that was even mildly amusing, people laugh. I mean,
So did you use that? Did you use that? Like, is that an observation that sort of gave you some sort of entry into her?
No, you know what I did? I only looked at film of her before she was Queen when I was doing my research. I just looked at her
when she was a little girl?
Up to the age of, when she was a little girl especially, just to see who is this character, who is this person inside this huge, weighty thing that's is in her and entrapping her. Who is that person inside of there? So I looked at film of her as a little girl a lot, as much as I could find. There wasn't a lot out there. And then anything up to and stuff of her during the war, when she was very happy during the war because she could work on cars, and be in the women's forces. I think she was very happy there. just this practical, slightly unimaginative probably, but very, very dutiful, very dutiful, disciplined, but kind. You see her with Princess Margaret. She's always sort of encouraging her and helping her. And
Yeah,
you know. So there's a great kindness there, I thought. So I just sort of, came towards what I thought was this real person inside of this extraordinary bubble she's in.
It's great. It's sort of I don't know, because like I would assume, but I didn't grow up with with her my whole life as the queen, that she would want to say something, but you would never expect her to say anything about your portrayal of her.
No, I wouldn't have ever expected that. No, or asked for it, or no.
So
no.
do you I would assume that the way you were brought up with your father, that there was some criticism of the monarchy in the household.
Oh, yes. Oh, no, absolutely. My parents were strong anti-monarchists.
But you have a reverence that survived that for the monarchy?
No, I don't have a reverence for the monarchy. As Stephen Frears said, we're queenists. Mm-hmm. We're not monarchists. We're queenists.
Oh, you like the queen.
I look at that woman and I appreciate and very much respect how she has conducted herself through all of this history, through all of these changes, cultural changes in the world that she has survived through. You imagine the massive cultural change she's experienced.
Oh, yeah.
And, the loss of empire.
Yeah.
Before the Second World War, she grew up in a world where Britain was a big empire, and there was a power in the world, and she has witnessed the demise of that completely. But the way she's conducted herself, she never got fat, she never got thin, she never became addicted to anything. She just steadily went on, through Diana and all the stuff that family-wise she's had. Andrew, oh my God, Andrew.
Now.
So, but she will, like this amazing sort of ship, just carrying on all through all the storms.
And what do you think, like, in terms of, like, because you did a lot of Shakespeare before you did films, right? I mean, when you were younger.
Yes.
Now, like, as an artist, how does that? Because Shakespeare pretty much covers the full spectrum of human goodness and horror. Like,
my God, yes, it does. From Tamburlaine, or Lear, Gloucester's eyes being put out.
Right.
He was unafraid of horror. Yeah.
And so, like, I have to, in terms of your education as a grown-up and as somebody who investigates the human emotional capacity, it's all in Shakespeare, right? It's all there. So it is. So you've had to, like, part of that training, whether it's about acting or movement or being here or there on the stage, emotionally, you're going to get filled up with almost every type of interaction possible between humans doing Shakespeare. Yes.
The only issue there is the language.
Right.
As you said, so you are fighting. You're not fighting the language, because the language is so poetic and beautiful and supports the emotion, but it's trying to get the audience to understand what you're talking about, sometimes.
But when it was written, that wasn't an issue.
No, no, I would imagine not.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I would imagine not. And it was certainly a lot easier, although he was still writing poetically. And there are still poetic conceits that you have to sort of follow through and understand the ultimate sort of bringing together of that conceit.
So you spend this time doing Shakespeare and doing some other classics and some modern theater. And then, the desire is to do film, which it seems is a much, in most cases, unsatisfying and lesser venture? Like, did you feel that after doing the work you did on stage, the first few films you had was sort of like a letdown? Like, I mean, is it really